Hey, Kevin, how are you, sir?
What's going on, my man? Always good to be here. You know it.
Are you tired?
Yeah, just getting up. Not going to train until like 1 o'clock. So you caught me right before my morning coffee, but you'll get the real me.
That's what I always look for, is the real you. Hey, man, you know what I did? I don't know if you saw this. The UFC always puts out free fights, previewing the next weekend's fight. They put out your original fight with him. You were 21. It was your UFC debut. Have you gone back recently and watched that fight?
Nah, I watched it when we first were talking about Fight Now, and and I haven't watched it since. It's like I just feel like I'm a completely different fighter from that, and I think anybody who watches that and then goes back and watches me in my recent years, you could just tell I'm a different man than that. So the fight. It's going to show some of the things that Al's going to do again. I don't feel like Al has made as many improvements, but it's not really going to tell me much.
Here's what it was interesting to me. First of all, I don't remember, but I saw it. Al Iaquinta hit an X guard sweep. That was pretty. I have to say that was pretty impressive. I didn't know he had. Look, I mean, for a guy who's got a reputation as a wrestle boxer, that's a nice little move. But more than that, your striking defense to me was the biggest area of improvement because your ground game was good. You
Yeah,
took his back, you nearly choked him out. So that's part. I mean, I'm not saying you're not better, but that part was already pretty good. But
sure.
would you agree that your striking defense is probably the biggest area of development since that time?
Yeah, that was the first time that I made a big jump up. I was fighting in front of country bars, and I didn't come from another organization like a Bellator or a One FC or whatever. I fought from fighting in front of 500 people into the Prudential Center, and to be honest, Al was really the first really tough guy that I fought. Everybody before then, they just didn't give me much challenge. So it was a big learning experience for me. At the time, it was the toughest fight, but I've had 12 fights since then, all at a higher level. I fought much tougher guys, and you just learn and you learn through that experience. And yeah, maybe my striking defense has gotten a whole lot better, but my offense got a lot better too. So that's what he gonna see on Saturday. I'm worried about that offense. I'm gonna put him out.
Who was your coach in that fight? He had like an Arabic tattoo around his arm. I did not recognize the gentleman.
His name is Sean Dezay. He was my original head coach. It was really just me and him just doing it. I didn't really have many training partners at all. I was still at college at the time when they gave me that fight. And since then, as soon as that fight was over, I knew I had to make some changes and really start to train like a professional. Just because I wasn't getting in the training that I should. I would train like halfway once a day, and then I go and do a bunch of other things. So right after that fight is when I moved to Las Vegas and really got behind a good coach.
Huh, that's interesting. What were you studying in college, by the way?
Biomed, actually. I don't know
Were
what
you
I'm gonna do
really?
with it, but
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but you never know. Maybe.
Hmm. So you made the move to Extreme Couture. You had this large development in your game. What do you see in Al? You've mentioned that you didn't see the same amount of progress. I don't know the number of fights he's had since then. Obviously, he's had a fairly recent intermittent layoff, I guess the way I would call it. But what do you make of his development? Yes, he's a different fighter too. Maybe not as much in your estimation as you, but he's grown, right? So how much?
Yeah, Al has changed a little bit, but I think it's more he's just changed with time. He's gotten a little bit older. But I've had 12 fights since our fight. He's only had six.
Right.
And he's taken years off in there, and he's a real estate agent now. He's going around. He's worried about other things. He's the one that's doing something else. When we fought the first time, he had so much more experience over me. He had been through the Ultimate Fighter. He had already had 3 or 4 fights in the UFC. And now the tables have flipped a little bit. This is what I do full time, and I think that's what's really going to show through is the evolution. He changes up a little bit. He's got some things that I got to watch out for. Al's a tough guy. I'm not going to take it away from him. I don't really like him, but I'm gonna respect his style and I'm gonna respect his skills. He can show up and he's never gonna go away, and it's gonna make for a damn good fight. So I've made it. I made this training camp all the hardest that it could possibly be because I know he's going to give me a good fight.
I want to follow up on that in just a minute, but you said you didn't like Al. Okay, tell me why. Now, let me give you my vantage point from a media guy, which is
Sure.
very different. I don't have to fight him. But at the same time, he can be, look, he's got a fiery disposition sometimes. But when it comes to us, he's super professional. He's friendly. He speaks out on behalf of fighter interests. Why doesn't that matter?
I mean, he has some. Of course, he go. I've had a couple people say this to me already. He's got some good qualities, probably, but we just are two different types of people. We crossed paths a couple times in these last years, and we just two different. He's that Jersey boy that's gonna get drunk and fuck up a hotel room, and I just don't think there's his voice shouldn't be no bigger than it already is. So I feel like it's my personal duty to get him up out of there and put him back on the prelims.
This is like the standard MMA media question, but you mentioned the training camp was harder. Help me understand in what ways it was harder meaningfully that will contribute to a difference in the outcome this time.
I don't mean it was necessarily harder than my other training camps before. I feel like each training camp I get a little bit smarter. I get a little bit better at what I'm doing. And this time I really just added more guys in that are going to be tougher opponents than Al. Tougher strikers, tougher wrestlers, and tougher on the ground. So, and I've done rounds with them where I'll go three guys and one every round, which is something that I haven't done before. It's something that I feel like is really going to help me during the later rounds, especially against Alice. He gets tougher as the fight goes on, and I make sure I even win those late rounds against a fresh guy. Not only that, but then I've added a nutritionist in for this camp too, who's been with me for a couple of days. So he's going to make that weight cut a little bit easier on me, and it's going to make me. It's been able to make me focus more on the actual training. He's been cooking all my meals and everything for me, so I'm just focusing just on the training camp.
Now, I have to ask, how do you take your coffee?
Straight black. Look at it. Straight black.
Not even a little Splenda? Nothing?
Strong.
Now, where do you like your coffee from? What part of the world? Do you get that specific?
Nah, I ain't there yet. It's a couple good coffee shops around here that I'll go to and splurge sometimes. But nah, I ain't there yet. I get the straight from Whole Foods. So I don't know, wherever they get it from is where I get it from. I don't even check.
Fair enough. Breakfast blend. Now, you mentioned you had a nutritionist. Okay, you know the questions are going to be about the weight cut because as you get into championship territory, you saw Hanato Moicano was just on standby and failed to make weight. That ain't going to be good for his call up when it comes title time. So give us a sense of how your weight management at this stage is going and to what extent the nutritionist had an impact on that.
I mean, the weight is perfect. It's right where it's going to be. The only thing that I needed to add was just the scheduling. He's going to make sure I get the timing down. People want to talk about the last time with Edson, me missing by a pound, but really I was cutting until 9:59. They allow us until 10 o'clock. I'm not one of these guys that came in 30 minutes before and just couldn't cut no more. Really, we just got off on the timing of it. So I feel like that's going to be the biggest thing. But, if you ask, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to fight. And I'm showing up on weight. That you got my word on.
How much are you right now? Do you know?
I'm about 174 right now.
That's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's a little on the heavy side.
I mean, it's much bigger. It's much smaller than I've been in the past, at least.
What's the most you've ever come in on a Tuesday?
178 at one point. And that one actually wasn't even too bad. I think it was just a lot of the water cut and everything. It's a lot of science and things that go behind it. But do I wish I didn't have to cut the weight? Yeah, of course. I feel like that 165-pound weight class is coming. I think people see it's necessary. I'm working with the best nutritionists in the world, and even some of the guys down at the UFCPI. I've been kind of consulting with them since the last year, and they even said, I'm as lean as I could possibly be. When you see me, you can see I'm as lean as I can be in my perfect weight. If they added with the 165, where I didn't have to cut that 10 pounds of water from my brain, I think it would be a whole lot healthier. But, for now, for the foreseeable future, I can make 155. Not only that, but 165 would help guys like Max, too. Max can go up and compete at 155. He wouldn't have to go against guys like me. Because just when I stand next to him, I got a bigger frame. It would be unfair for him to have to compete with somebody like me. But he did his thing.
Yeah, I want to ask you about him, but first, the 165. You heard what Dana has said recently. Even I'll admit, Kevin, I was a bit of a skeptic of the 165 idea, and then on my radio show, we did like a mock draft of pulling from 170 and pulling from 155. And you can get 3 stacked divisions that way. It's entirely doable. And yet Dana seems intent, at least for now, on not doing it. Have you talked to him? Why do you think he's so resistant to the idea?
I've talked to them a few times. The last time I talked to him was before kind of everybody hopped on the train. I feel like I was one of the first guys to kind of bring it up. And when I first talked to him, it just seemed like it seemed like too much work for them, which to me is, I kind of had to take that with a grain of salt, because we're talking about our health here. We're talking about the longevity of the sport. I don't know. I feel like the more that people keep talking about it, and it makes all the sense in the world. It's inevitable. So I feel like maybe sometimes he just don't want to do stuff just because it's somebody else's idea. I think if straight from his idea, then he'd probably do it first. He probably ain't gonna like to hear that, but he can text me after this.
Fair enough. Let me ask you about Max Holloway. I was blown away by him on Saturday. And there's a lot of numbers that I had called in my previous segment that just speak to how absurd his performance was. But I'm wondering, as much as I like Max, he was on the show last week. How frustrating is it for you as a top lightweight when you hear the guy one division below does well, and the first thing everyone says is, he should fight Tony, he should fight Habib, he should fight whoever? It's not that I don't want to see those as a fan, but then I think about guys like you, I'm like, well, what is Kevin Lee supposed to do here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that needs to that I feel like in time maybe people will stop doing that. That they'll kind of see, we're talking about something bigger than that. I feel like people are too short sighted. They go right to, you win one fight and then all of a sudden like you're the GOAT. And this is not no disrespect to Max at all. Max is one of the very few fighters in the game that I got a lot of respect for, and I actually consider a good friend. And I mean, he looked amazing, really, and really, we all kind of the same generation. I feel like me and him are both in the new generation of fighter, and he just set the bar last week. So it's given me a little bit more motivation, a little bit more fuel this weekend to go out there and put a show on. But I feel like that's not the way you get it done. That's not the way you become a superstar. Is just by, okay, automatically let's just bump up. And you see the same thing with Khabib, and I told this to Ali, is, he wins one fight and then all of a sudden he wants to fight Floyd Mayweather and make $100 million. And it's like, come on, that's not how this game works. It's a marathon. Keep putting in the work, keep taking out number one contenders, and then maybe you'll get there eventually. You talk about guys like George St. Pierre, who had to defend the title 9-10 times before they start saying that. And I feel like that's the way that the sport should really be. Let's get back to the real sport. Let's get away from these. We've already seen it. Why you want Khabib to fight Floyd? It's not even a great fight. Why you want Max to come up and fight somebody like Khabib or like me? It's unfair for him to even have to. That's a lot of weight. People don't understand. We competitors. We're just too big and too strong. It's just too big of a disadvantage. So I feel like it needs to be a clear playing field, and then that's when you really see the best fighter.
All right, let me be a hypocrite. I'm going to acknowledge I'm a hypocrite right in front of you, Kevin Lee, saying that I would feel bad for a top competitor, given that someone in the weight class below is making noise. How competitive is Max Holloway at lightweight in your, we don't really know, but guessing?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I had to guess, I mean, he could beat a lot of guys. I think he would, for sure, he would be top 5. But and this is coming as no disrespect to Max. It's just you're just dealing with you're just dealing with too much size and strength, I think. And it's just a different game, and it's really unfair to even have to make those comparisons. I think he would be. It's matchups make styles. This is MMA. There's a lot of ways to win. There's a lot of ways to lose. And I really can't make that call.
I bet you can. I bet if I asked you in private, you could.
No. I'm being real with you. Like, I honestly, I don't know. Do I think he would be champ? I think he could probably get the belt at some point. But I don't know. I don't think he could be there for a long run, at least.
Now, that does leave, Max Holloway notwithstanding, still these unresolved issues at lightweight. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Conor and Habib because the athletic commission just decides they're going to take their sweet time with that. But in your mind, I know you have a plan to just drive forward. So, okay, Saturday goes your way, let's say, right? You beat Iaquinta. That's tremendous. What is reasonably available?
I mean, the next fight is definitely Khabib for me. I feel like I've been seeing that man's game for years now, and I just know I got his number, and I know that he know I got his number. And after this one will show the world that I'm just on a different level. You know, Al took him 5 full rounds and showed that the man was human. And you know, Khabib just didn't have his best performance against him. So once I go out there and I smoke Al, I'll leave it up to the people to make those comparisons. I said that I beat Barboza worse than he beat Barboza, and I'm gonna do the same thing with Al. And if I got to do it again next with Connor, then so be it. But I feel like the winner of Khabib and Tony, whenever they make that fight, hopefully they make it in the beginning of the year. I'm waiting on the winner of that, and then we'll see where everything goes.
Now, before you go, you and I both know you're a thoughtful guy. You're fighting on the last Fox card, certainly the last big Fox card, sort of a bookend here on the Fox era. I think it would be safe to say, Kevin, that MMA changed in some ways for the better and some ways for the worse during the Fox era. Give me one change you loved during this era and one change you hated.
Oh wow! Okay, that's
You come on this show with me, Kevin. You know I give you questions like
that's
that.
a good question. That's a better question than I was expecting you to ask. One thing that I love that's changed is you know, you can kind of see the I don't, you know, you can see just the evolution of the sport. You know, you can see people that can do it all now, and you can really see that you know everybody is kind of on that wave. You know, you're seeing less specialists in the game. Yeah, some guys have a lot of things that they do real well. Like Max is a volume puncher, and that's what he's going to be. But he can do everything. You know, and I feel like you really starting to see that now. So for me, as a fan of the sport, it just, and as a competitor, it gives me a little bit more you know, hope for the future of the sport. It's still getting bigger, it's still getting better, and I feel like switching over to ESPN is going to be huge for it. I'm excited. I'm glad that they made me the last Fox card. You know, I'm from Detroit. I remember a time when we had channel 2, 4, 6, and 7, and to be fighting on one of those channels in front of millions of people, and as a young kid, it's just like it shines my heart a little bit. So I'm excited that they made me the last card. They did the right move. I'm gonna show the future and continue to show that evolution of the sport. One thing that I've hated is that, you know, people just stop seeing the sport for what it is, and you know, kind of get a little too lost in the drama and the bullshit. I'm trying to get it back to the real, and you know, that's what I'm gonna do this weekend.
You know what? I cannot wait to see it. UFC on Fox 31. This takes place at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's the last big Fox card. Kevin Lee takes on Al Iaquinta in the main event. Kevin, thank you for spending some time with us. Enjoy the black coffee. Can't wait to see you on Saturday, my friend.
Appreciate it. It's just kicking in. I appreciate you kicking it with me.